The 37th Annual Benoit Salisbury Oratorical Contest. Studies have shown that America's #1 fear is public speaking. Number 2, death. So it is indeed it's a very courageous thing that these people you see seated behind me are doing today, especially in front of their peers. I know that you will give them your undivided attention, courtesy, and respect that they deserve. And now I will ask this year's participants in the Benoit Salisbury Senior Oratorical Contest to please stand and proceed to the music room. Frank Corbo.
What would you have told your younger self? For me, it's never give up. 3 words I'm sure you've heard your entire life. However, this is the decision that I wish I made years ago. In the womb, I had a stroke, cutting blood supply to the brain, causing my cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affect a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. Imagine having weights constantly strapped to your body, making your muscles extremely tight and hard to move, along with affecting your speech. This is what my life is like. There have been countless days waking up in the morning, knowing it's going to be a bad day for my body, never realizing the severity of my injuries because of the amount of pain my body feels daily. This has felt like never-ending torture as a kid. I couldn't tell anyone the amount of times I've thrown tantrums as a child, frustrated and angry because I could not perform basic human activities. Consistently in and out of doctors when I was young. I had a pediatrician, speech therapist, physical therapist, occupational therapist, neurologist, orthopedist, and allergist, all before the age of 3. In my childhood, I had zero confidence and would always give up every day of my life. I would even notice my twin brothers, who were younger than me, surpassing me in everything. I was years behind my classmates when it came to athletics, always being the last pick of gym class, first one tagged at recess, and the ball was never passed to me. My friends asked why I wasn't able to do these things, but I was too embarrassed and I lied about my disability. It felt like I was behind everyone my whole life. I felt trapped in a body different from everyone else. I remember going home, telling my mom I hate myself. I soon realized my life would be not nearly as easy as anyone else's. Playing sports wasn't a reachable dream, something I never imagined I'd be able to do. Countless bad memories, me letting my teams down, missing a wide open pass with a soccer ball, or an easy catch that was almost always dropped in Little League. I remember being made fun of and not at all respected by other kids. However, I always had my family, who would support me in every challenging moment in my life. In middle school, my mom had encouraged me to try out for soccer. By some miracle, I made the team. This is the little light I needed. I then went out for the wrestling team and the track team in middle school. I started slowly improving myself every day. Whether it was kicking a soccer ball in the backyard or shooting baskets, I slowly found a love for sports. I started to become extremely competitive and I wanted to win every game I played in, whether it was cards or a game of basketball. Once high school came around, I decided to conquer running, and I gave cross country a try. I really ended up loving running. This is probably the thing I struggled most with in my childhood. Always running with my right arm pinned to my chest and my right leg not being able to move as fast as my left. While running was by far the most violent and painful sport on my body, I learned to love the pain and push through it. I then joined indoor and outdoor track and became a thrower. Consistently trying to build muscle and become stronger became a mental challenge. Always feeling like my body is resenting the progress I was trying to make. Slowly, day by day, I learned how to push through it. My whole life, I've had to work harder than anyone else around me. Most days, do multiple workouts on top of practicing. Now I can look back and see why I put in all that work, why I never gave up, why I wanted to become a better athlete. It's because I could always see my younger self, always disappointed in anything he did. I've come so far in these past 6 years, and I want to push it further. I worked extremely hard and have given myself the opportunity to compete with everyone else and throw when I go to college. Never in my dreams did I think I'd be accepted as a D2 athlete and have the opportunity to become a nurse. If I had one moment with my younger self, I would tell him to never give up, because you can push it further than anyone else. Thank you.
Joseph Lapor. Hello classmates, friends, teachers, and the rest of the student body at Smithfield High School. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joseph Lapor, and I believe I have something to say, which is why I'm standing here in front of you today. Let me start off with a question. What is one thing that you, Jeff Bezos, Keanu Reeves, and I all have in common? We all have a limited time here on this earth. To be blunt, you are going to die, and you are going to die twice. I believe that everyone we meet in our lives is here to teach us a lesson. Whether this lesson is more literal with a Mr. Stecker, first period on a Monday, check for understanding, his LEDs just getting turned on, the two classmates currently incapable of picking their heads up. Yeah, that kind of check for understanding. Or maybe it's not so in your face, and maybe a bit more obscure, buried behind a wall of time. Sometimes it's learned on the first day of meeting someone, and many others, you don't learn a lesson right away. Lessons are there for a reason. They are here for us to learn. We don't have to like them, and you probably won't like the majority of them. But guess what? Too bad. Life will keep marching forward, time will stay flowing, and the earth will keep spinning. Simply put, time does not care. Tomorrow is not a guarantee. I was reminded of this with the tragic and sudden passing of Mrs. Young, a beloved teacher to a beloved teacher and to a good part of the school that likes to call ourselves music nerds, a friend. We are never guaranteed a tomorrow, and that's honestly terrifying. Even for me, I cannot count the amount of nights I spent thinking about what would happen if I were to tragically pass away. Just take a second and think about it. What would happen if you were to go to bed tonight knowing you would not awake tomorrow? Would you be regretful? Would you just bite the bullet and accept your fate? Or would you fight against the inevitable? Would you be happy with the life you have lived? And that is it. That is the single question I would like to ask you, the audience, today. Are you happy with the life you have lived? If I were to pass on, I would look back and yes, I would be sad at all the missed opportunities. But at the same time, I feel I've taken my life and lived it to the fullest. And I will continue to do so. But the speech is not just about me. It's about all of us. So I ask you, what have you done in your life? Will you leave this earth better or worse off with your presence? Have you done anything in your life that you're proud of? It doesn't have to be some grand discovery or invention. It could be something small. Maybe you held the door for someone. Maybe you cracked a really good joke that just made someone's day. It could be a myriad of things. For me, however, the thing that allows me to say that I have lived life to the fullest is my time teaching at Pleasant View Elementary, formerly known as Anna McCabe. Last year, I was given the opportunity to volunteer and assist Mrs. Barrett, the music teacher over at Pleasant View Elementary, with her 5th grade band class. Doing so has taught me some very valuable lessons and opened my eyes to a possible career path. I rediscovered who I was, and my passion for music was reignited. And the only reason I had gone originally was to fill one of my graduation requirements. And now, I go for the sake of going, because I understand that tomorrow is not promised, and I want to continue living life to the fullest. You are going to die, and you are going to die twice. A man's first death is after his last heartbeat. A man's second and final death is after he's forgotten. Live to be remembered, just preferably in a good way. I've taken my time and given it to others, and as a result, I can proudly say, I have lived my life to the fullest. So I ask you, the audience, once again, have you lived life to the fullest? Do you have any regrets? Because remember, death marches for us all, and he will not discriminate. Memento mori, and thank you.
Enjoy the time you have. That is one thing I wish I had practiced over the past 4 years of my high school experience. It has always been a fast, constant movement of events. I didn't feel like I got to enjoy all the encounters. As time passes, for me, for you, for all of us, we all realize that maybe sometimes it is not the large moments that count. Instead, it is the microscopic ones that do. I came here not realizing how quickly everything would become a memory. Realizing it too late, I now see how all of those experiences have come and gone. When I started as a freshman 4 years ago, I had one simple goal in mind: get through 4 years of senior high with excellent grades and as fast as possible, even if that meant not liking anything that lies ahead. I held this promise over the next 2 years, which were both wasteful. My freshman year, being COVID impacted, was a lifetime experience. This stretched my goal even further. This is because I felt I always had to do well in my courses and survive them. After all, I was taking harder courses. This was in order to push myself to the absolute limits of my capabilities. For example, sophomore year, I thought it was a brilliant idea to double up in both biology and chemistry, all while taking anatomy at the same time. This was a challenge that not only was I unprepared for, but a decision I highly regret. Should have stuck with bio. Another instance is signing up for challenging electives that I didn't really like. Sure, there were wonderful classes to learn, but they did not quite fit my interests, and therefore made them dull to me. I did not have to do that. With 3 years already in the mirror, I decided that over the summer, I would reflect on myself while trying to prepare for senior year. Already establishing plans for what I want to do for the rest of my life, I wanted to take a break and focus on the future. However, it was during this summer break that I realized that I ignored a good piece of advice. Enjoy the time you have. Specifically, enjoy the time you have in high school. Instead of trying to make every second memorable, I just felt like I rushed to get to the finish line and missed those memorable parts. By rushing through, I didn't properly get to enjoy the final moments. After all, this period in your life is supposed to be exciting. One can never turn back the clock to relive these years. These experiences are once in a lifetime. But what's that actually supposed to mean? Well, for me, it means that one has to find the perfect balance between hard courses and having fun with your classmates. So, slow down and just enjoy the high school experience. The reason why I emphasize to you all is because you don't need to be hard on yourself. You just simply need to cherish the time you have. This means that you can have a good experience and push hard in your courses at the same time. That is the perfect high school experience. Be sure to set aside time for yourself or even your good friends every day. Be sure to have the experiences you deserve, even if you have things going on or have a heavy course load. I do not want you to experience the regrets I have. So, throughout the course of this senior ride, I have tried to cherish every single second of this adventure called high school. I had more fun this year than the last 3 years combined. In fact, I do not even feel like this year was a wasted year at all. However, I have realized this too late, as my senior year and high school career is coming to an end. I should have taken advantage of the time I had sooner. But then again, here we are, standing in front of you. All I want to ask you is this: are you taking advantage of the time you have in high school right now and enjoying every single second of it? I hope so. Remember, life is made of major and minor moments. Don't breeze past the small ones on a quest for the bigger ones. Thank you.
Rocks Bianchi.
In the words of Dr. Seuss, be who you are and say what you feel, because in the end, those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter. I've always seen my personal problems smaller compared to others. I always had problems with my life. Family problems, mental problems, problems with friends. They felt huge to me, but I was always told it was insignificant and unimportant. I lived my entire life thinking my struggles shouldn't seem so big to me because there were so many people whose issues were much greater than mine. I was just someone who was being overdramatic. But bottling up every single emotion is definitely not somewhere you want to be as a teenager. Growing up, I heard it a lot. One adult in my life has always made me feel so small, especially when my emotions felt huge and out of control. He would inevitably say the last thing I needed to hear, that it was all just for attention. I sought advice from my mom, my siblings, and spent countless hours in therapy, but nothing seemed to improve. Nothing I would say or do would stop this person from putting me down, from making me feel devalued and unheard. As I got older, I realized that he would never really understand how I felt. For as long as I can remember, he would just laugh at me, laugh at how I felt, laugh at the fact that I would get upset, laugh because crying was just me being overdramatic. Even at my lowest of lows, even when I went to the mental hospital last year, he laughed. No one should have to deal with that pain, and with someone who has, I wouldn't even wish that upon my worst enemy. I have also gotten a similar response in this school from students and teachers alike. A few times I found the courage to express my feelings to them. But the people you are supposed to talk to sometimes just make it worse. I didn't want to be told that I should get used to feeling like this, or that certain things in my life shouldn't upset me. I just wanted someone who would listen. Not to tell me that I basically need to suck it up. Hearing that feels destructive to myself and my self-worth. Luckily, I found friends and teachers along the way that I can entrust with my innermost thoughts, who respect what I am going through and do not judge the value of my feelings. These friends have stuck by my side throughout all of my ups and downs. The teachers I have closely entrusted stood up for me and always gave me the time and space I needed to succeed. But I learned something this year that I wish I had learned sooner. It doesn't matter who understands you. All that matters is that you understand how you feel. You must be asking yourself, Rox, how did you learn that? From last December up until mid-March, my life had taken a dark turn. Everything started going downhill. I tried reaching out to people, but it really seemed like no one was listening. Everything I said was dismissed, and no one took me seriously. I would spend nights in my bed crying. The friends I would talk to didn't really know what to say, and the teachers would just let me cry to them. Eventually, I reconnected with one of my friends. They listened to me and understood, and I started to feel better. I took a couple of days off from school and started to deconstruct my feelings. When I started feeling better, it became easier to explain to people what I was going through. It felt so good to finally understand why I was feeling the way I did. So take the time you need to breathe and understand where your emotions come from. When you find the people who will listen to you, things will get better. Things in your life will look up. You'll be happier in the long run with a good support system. In the words of Dr. Seuss, be who you are and say what you feel, because those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter.
Is Courtney Arasan.
Our time in high school lasts 180 days, multiplied by 4 years, which is 720 days, or 1,036,800 minutes, or 62,210,000 seconds. We spent a colossal amount of time within the walls of Smithfield High School. But what makes that time a lot more bearable is finding a place here where we belong. I'm talking about a place where even for a second amidst the chaos, you can stop and take a breath. When I was searching for my place, way back in 9th grade, how lucky was I that my love of music brought me to Miss Catherine Young. I'd like to spend time talking to you about Miss Young. For students who knew her, students who didn't, and for teachers that worked alongside her, let us celebrate who she was. It's hard to take this woman that was larger than life and encapsulate her into a single speech. This past December, we lost a legend, a role model, a great. So let's take this time and remember her together. Miss Young never stopped. She was a lifelong learner and an incredible collaborator. Every day she challenged her students, and by doing so, she challenged herself. In chorus, we learned songs in various different languages, such as French, German, Spanish, and Kosher. In order to teach us, Miss Young spent hours learning the correct pronunciation of every word. She wasn't fluent in these languages, but learning them brought her joy. She never hesitated to reach out and collaborate either. One memory that replays in my mind is when she asked Miss Khaleesi to help fine-tune our Spanish. I rewatched Miss Young sitting by our sides as she too learned from Miss Khaleesi. She demonstrated that even as a teacher, you can still be a student, always gaining knowledge. Learning will keep us forever young. Kindness is a universal language, and Miss Young spoke it fluently. Her title was that of chorus teacher, but to many of her students, she was home. Her home of 4 bright blue walls covered in memorabilia and a piano at its center welcomed all with warmth and generosity. Music is what she taught, but kindness was woven into every note she played. I know there are many students in the audience today who returned back to this home, even if they no longer had her as a teacher. When students who still wanted to perform could not fit chorus into their schedules, she would stay late or come early to teach them. We know she was a beacon of light, and we were all moths gravitating towards her. Do you remember her smile and her laugh? They were so bright, warm, and electric that just being in her presence made your day brighter. Do you remember her optimism? How she listened? I do. Let us all remember her kindness. It will keep us forever young. 103 days have passed since we lost Miss Young, and it's still not real. The world should have stopped. Mine did. How about yours? Yet all around us, the world keeps spinning, and we are expected to keep marching forward with holes in our hearts and no place to call home. I tell myself, it's okay to still feel broken. It's okay to still feel confused and lost. Some days, you might feel okay. Some days, you might even smile. And some days, tears may overtake you. Our community is still grieving this profound loss. Understanding will keep us forever young. This is not my speech. This is our speech because Miss Young was our teacher, our colleague, and our friend. Together, we will miss her joy, friendship, voice, and love. There is no more of a fitting way to bring this speech to a close than with Miss Young's own words. She once said, "Feel the feelings, be sad and angry. Then, when you're ready, pick yourself back up again and carry on. You've been through worse and you're strong. You can handle anything life throws at you. We're trying, Miss Young. And in our hearts, your memory will remain forever young."
Is Mr. Matthew Flor. Everything I do is never good enough. Many people have tried to convince me otherwise, but when you have severe obsessive-compulsive disorder, everything is a problem. I'm sure everyone in this room has heard of OCD, but there are numerous misconceptions regarding the disorder. For example, not everybody that suffers from OCD is extremely neat and organized or obsessed with cleanliness. OCD is becoming more prevalent as well, with 1 in every 200 children being diagnosed each year in the United States. How lucky am I, getting picked to have something unique, and it ends up being an OCD diagnosis. When I tell people that I was diagnosed with OCD at the age of 10, they think that I sorted all my Legos in color-coded piles, or that I arranged my crayons in perfectly straight lines. However, this could not be farther from the truth. My OCD began with intrusive thoughts that were unrelenting and paralyzing. When someone I knew got physically hurt, my brain would make me believe that I somehow caused their injury. I also believed that my sister's dolls would come to life and try to kill me while I slept. That was fun. These thoughts were untrue, but felt real in the moment. They never stopped, no matter what I do. As I got older, the OCD rituals began. Whether brushing my teeth, getting dressed, turning off a light switch, typing on a keyboard, closing my bedroom door, or picking up a pen, it was impossible for me to be completely satisfied with these actions. You may be wondering why that is. I'm not too sure, to be honest, but I do know that OCD is the reason for it. Because of my OCD, I have been through 2 partial hospitalization programs, which I attended in 7th grade and again in 9th grade. I left school early every day for 6 weeks and attended an intensive program of cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy. I think my classmates were taking bets on where I was going every day. While these programs helped, they were definitely not a cure. I barely functioned throughout 10th grade, and by the time 11th grade came along, my symptoms had worsened. My OCD rituals took hours of my life away, and I was constantly ruminating. I was taking 3 hours to get ready for school and 3 hours to complete my shower routine, leaving no time for homework. By then, my life was falling apart, and I was beginning to spiral out of control. I began avoiding all activities that caused me anxiety and just wanted to stay in my room. The last option for me was a residential treatment program. I can still see my parents' faces when my doctor said he was referring me to a hospital in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, a short 18-hour drive away. The waiting list was long, but the call came, and we only had 2 days to get there, or we would miss our spot. We drove through the night just to make it to our admissions appointment. I tried to prepare myself for that day, and my parents did too. But I think we all underestimated the emotional impact of having those doors closed and seeing that we were on different sides of them. I couldn't imagine what was worse, seeing my mother sobbing in my father's arms, or how they felt driving home in silence after leaving their son in a hospital several states away. I would end up living in Wisconsin for 91 days away from friends and family. So if you were one of the people who asked me what I did last summer, and I didn't answer you, now you know why. While this program gave me a lot of tools to succeed, it was also a stark reminder that OCD is with me for life, and it was up to me to fight back against the rituals and compulsions. What I learned there and upon returning home is how much support I received from my family. I will admit that it's not easy living with someone with OCD, and I am beyond lucky to have them in my life. I also have to thank my guidance counselor and all of my teachers for their support, patience, and compassion as I navigate through this disorder each day at Smithfield High School. I know it must be exhausting having to answer all of my weekly emails seeking reassurance. Just typing the speech alone was a daunting task, but it was an important story for me to tell. I know that I may stick out in a crowd, and I have heard people say that I act weird or compare me with a video game NPC. For the older crowd, this stands for a non-player character, which is a video game avatar that kind of moves back and forth in a robotic fashion. Hearing these things hurt, but I do not let that define my character or change how I treat others. This leads me to why I chose to tell my story, so that I can offer a piece of advice to my underclassmen. Always be kind to others because you have no idea what they may be going through. Surround yourself with good people, and you too will become a better person. I will have to fight OCD every day for the rest of my life, but that will not discourage me from being kind to the people in my life. If I can come to school every day and be polite and respectful to others, I challenge you to do the same.
Ms. Craig DeRozier.
Adversity introduces us to ourselves. That quote is from a novel that I hold as one of my favorites, De-Evolution by Max Brooks. It tells the story of a group of survivors in the forests of Washington fighting off a pack of Sasquatches. Yes, it is a horror novel, and yes, it is an absurd premise, but bear with me for a second. The plot tells of how we may all have to face insurmountable challenges. Challenges that can crush those of us full of our own hubris, and yet elevate others who have yet to reach their full potential. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. I would hope none of you are out in the Washington wilderness fist-fighting a pack of Sasquatches, but still, my point stands. Adversity introduces us to ourselves. Adversity is something all of us experience in life. Whether it takes the shape of something mundane or something life-altering, the outcome is the same. These events that we encounter give way to the deepest and most human parts of our souls. However, the form adversity takes in someone's life does not determine who they truly are as a person. No, it's how they take hold of the situation, how they respond to adversity, and how they choose to act. That is a simple fact. Life is not fair, life is not easy, life is full of challenges that will be set in your way someday. It could be tomorrow, or it could be 10 years down the road, but you will have a choice to make. Oftentimes, those challenges are not visible, and no one will know you're struggling until you say something. Looking out, I say with near certainty that every single one of you is struggling with something in your life that no one else can see. These things could be as mundane as a bad grade on a test and needing to retake it, or having last lunch during English class and none of your friends being there. But some can be as big as mental health or the loss of a family member. In my case, there are some standout challenges that I can recall. These range from mundane to massive, but there are two that have had the most profound effect on me: chronic procrastination and mental health. Throughout my high school years, I would look at assignments given to me with the lowest sense of urgency, thinking that isn't due today, why should I do it? This is a very dangerous mindset to hold, and it led to my grades suffering greatly, especially in classes like American history and criminal justice. Even when I finally confronted that side of myself, it took months to escape that mindset, and it led to me almost miss the deadline for my Eagle Scout paperwork. 7 years of my life would have went right down the drain. Then my portfolio deadline loomed ahead of me due to my choice to put it off again and again. I finally made a change that allows me to make deadlines and hand in quality work before they loom over me like a Mayan prophecy. Secondly, speaking on mental health, let me just say that not everyone has the same experience with it, and that's okay. For me, however, going through late middle school and into the past 4 years of high school has been a struggle. There's this overwhelming feeling of boredom and emptiness and melancholic depression that follows me everywhere, every day. Feelings of anxiety and insecurity in most facets of myself. Deliberately not eating and trying not to sleep in a tumultuous cycle of hating myself when I don't eat and don't sleep, and vice versa. I admit, yes, it's gotten worse as I moved through high school, to now, I feel like Sisyphus rolling a massive boulder up the steepest of mountains, and once I've made it to the top, the boulder slips and rolls all the way back down again to the depths of an unfathomably deep pit. But in that cycle, I haven't given up. Despite all of these struggles, I still refuse to, because giving up is the worst thing anyone can do in the face of adversity. I hold a great group of friends, a job that I love working at, and I've completed milestones that even just a few years ago, I never thought I'd have completed. Yes, the mental health struggles are still there with me and follow me despite the positive things, and that's okay. It's okay because I have learned that I am resilient. One day I'll make it to the top of the mountain and won't have to push the boulder anymore. That may not be tomorrow or even in the next 10 years, but it will be someday. All of you have a choice everyone will have to make many times in life. A choice I am sure most of you have had to make many times already. That is going to be whether you lay down and give up, or you stand up, dust yourself off, and push forward. Even if the adversity presented leaves bad memories or scars, you still cannot give up. Pushing through does not mean repression and neglect. No, it means growing and changing as a person. When adversity is knocking at your door, you won't be ready for it, and you'll be introduced to the most real version of yourself. And that's a notion many of us will never be ready for. Adversity introduces us to ourselves.
Abby Gillette.
My hoodie is undoubtedly old and worn out. I've worn it since the 6th grade, and I have rarely taken it off since then because it's my safe space. It's provided me with something I've always desperately needed: protection. It's been my shield for so many years that it's actually become difficult to remember a time without it. It's become part of my identity, in a way, and I've hidden behind it for as long as I've owned it. It's got stains and plenty of wear and tear, but it's kept me safe. It's been the one thin membrane between me and the outside world, a sort of barrier to keep me safe from the stress and anxiety of reality. Because my reality seemed different from everyone else's. It was filled to the brim with fear and stress and anxiety and worry, but if my hoodie was protecting me from that, then doesn't everyone have one? Maybe yours is a different color, a different size, a different texture, but at the end of the day, everyone has one. Each and every one of you. Because everyone has felt the need to protect themselves from something at one point or another. And just because your hoodie may be in the closet right now, doesn't mean you're not still wearing it. I used to wear this hoodie everywhere, and in a sense, it became my fear. It became a physical representation, a physical embodiment of my fears. The very thing I thought was protecting me from my anxiety was, in fact, a manifestation of that anxiety. By not taking it off, I was keeping myself in a bubble of fear and uncertainty and stress and worry. The hoodie was only closing me in with those feelings, engulfing me in them, and not allowing me to reach out, get oxygen, to let my lungs out as they throb and ache and tighten and scream as it stifles me, drowns me, clamps a hand over my mouth and says, "Quiet." But at some point, all bubbles pop. And maybe it's your own actions that pop the bubble, or maybe it's the events unfolding around you, but at some point it will. And it'll be new, and unpredictable, and terrifying, but you will be better off. Because then at least you'll be free of that fear and anxiety. At least you'll be able to breathe. And your lungs will expand with the fresh air, breathing it in and just feeling the sensation of clean air in your lungs without the pollution of unnecessary stress and anxiety. Feeling the release of the hoodie. Ridding yourself of a lot of that fear, ridding yourself of all the unnecessary anxiety and worry that never got you anywhere and only prevented you from being seen. By letting go of that hoodie, you're also letting go of that fear of being seen. Because if my hoodie represents my own fears, then your hoodies represent your fears too. So what's the harm in freeing yourself of some of that fear? The fear of being perceived, of being heard, of being seen. Or maybe that's not what you're afraid of. So what are you afraid of? For me, my fear has always been of myself, whether I realized it or not. A fear of the uncertainty of who I was and what I wanted, what was expected of me. For you, it might be a fear of the future, or maybe of another person. Or maybe you're afraid of putting yourself out there and being seen because it feels embarrassing. But why should you let that stop you? Why should you let fear of embarrassment keep you from trying, keep you from expressing yourself? Every day at school, I see so many people scared, afraid, and hiding behind their hoodies. And maybe they aren't always literal physical hoodies, but whatever it is, every single one of us is scared. And the only way to get rid of some of that fear is to take the hoodie off and let yourself breathe. Because most of the time, all the hoodie is doing is stifling you and holding you back from all the things you can achieve when you're fearless and free. So to all you underclassmen, I ask you, what hoodie are you wearing? And is it protecting you? Or is it holding you back?
Hello,
tell.
Last year, I was killing myself, and I didn't even care. I have carried a secret with me through the halls of the school, and I have lied over and over again to those I love. After today, everyone will know. Today I tell everyone my truth, in hopes that this truth can save the life of someone who feels how I felt during my junior year of high school. As difficult as it is, I want to share with you that during the past year of my life, I was anorexic, and I was dying. Nobody is 100% happy with the way they look, especially when you're in high school and some egotistical part believes that everyone cares about you. The truth is, everyone is way too busy caring about the way they look to even notice the new pimple on your face or the way that dress fits you. I hated the way I looked for so long, and like so many teenagers, I was painfully insecure. I was a teenage girl who just wanted to be enough. Throughout the past year, I've learned to accept that I might never be 100% satisfied with the way I look, and that's okay. I don't know the exact moment I decided that liking the way I looked was more important than being healthy, but I think it was gradual. I didn't immediately stop eating. I just started to slowly withdraw the intake of what I was eating day by day. When I started to see the change I wanted on my body, I felt great. How could something that made me feel so great be so wrong? So I continued doing it. I finally felt like I had control over everything. I was sure of it. I was starting to like the way I looked, so I must have been doing something right, and people were giving me the attention I wanted. But comments about how good I looked soon turned into worry. I was starting to look sick. I secretly loved the concern, knowing that it was all worth it. For whatever reason in my head, I had to get skinnier, even if it made me sicker. I couldn't stop now because I'd worked so hard to get here. It was worth it to look in that mirror and see myself disappear. I couldn't go back to how I used to look, because that would mean I would no longer be in control. And I was obsessed with this control. Soon, however, my disease started controlling me. From the moment I woke up in the morning to when my head hit the pillow at the end of the night, my mind was constantly thinking about food. I started to lose myself, doing everything I could to make sure that the number on the scale was going down. I was not only disappearing physically, but I was losing who I was as a person. I was no longer the fun and happy person I used to be, and I couldn't think of the last time somebody seemed to enjoy being around me. I couldn't blame them because I was completely miserable. I was exhausted all the time and could barely hold conversations. I was always so worried about how much I was eating, I could barely focus on anything else. As embarrassing as it is to admit, I was afraid of food, and my life now became focused on avoiding it. I couldn't go out with my friends because what if they wanted to go out to eat? I couldn't spend time with my grandparents because how could I say no to the food that my grandma lovingly prepared for me? So I isolated myself. It got to the point where I didn't even remember my life before my eating disorder, and I couldn't picture a future without it. For the rest of my life, I needed to live this way. But the harsh reality was there would be no life for me to live if I continued down this path. This path led to my doctor's office. My immune system, weakened by my eating disorder, made it easy for me to contract mono. But ironically, having mono saved my life. I had to go to the doctor's office multiple times because of it, and the doctors weighed me each time. It became obvious that I was losing a lot of weight in a short amount of time. My doctor expressed concern to my mother that I might have an eating disorder. My secret was about to be exposed. Despite my denial, the doctor set up a mandatory appointment with Hasbro Children's Hospital in their eating disorder clinic. Prior to that mandatory appointment, my mother and I went shopping for prom dresses, and that was the day everything changed. Dress after dress, my mother attempted to hide her growing concern because she could finally see how sick her daughter really was. As I looked in the full-body mirror, I was disgusted by my reflection, but this time in a completely different way. I didn't see someone that was fat or someone I was proud of. I saw how I really looked. Dead. I felt like I was looking at a ghost of myself. Something was wrong, and now I knew it. I broke down in the dressing room with my mother and confessed to her my secret. Her horrified and hurt expression is something I will never forget. She's going to forever blame herself for not noticing soon enough or installing a fear in me that I was never good enough, even though in reality she's not to blame. My parents loved me no matter what, and I always knew that. I realized that I was not only hurting myself, but I was also hurting the people who loved me most. 5 words parents never want to hear. Your daughter is very sick. But 1 week after my dressing room confession, this is just what the doctors were telling my parents. I was very sick, and my vitals were proof of that. My blood pressure and heart rate were dangerously low, and I was considered malnourished. How could I have let this happen? I swore I would never let myself get to this point, to the point where my body was shutting down. I felt like I had lost all control, which I once craved so much. There was a part of me that hated myself for breaking down and telling the truth. In my eyes, I'd been doing so good, even if that was not the reality of it. Who was I without my eating disorder? I'd been struggling with it for so long that it became a part of me that I didn't want to lose. I found comfort in my sickness, and it was where I wanted to stay. At first, every part of me wanted to go back to my old ways. I was so ashamed and embarrassed about what I had done to myself. I was scared that if I told people in my life, I would become a burden to them and they would leave me. But I was hurting those closest to me, and I felt the need to at least explain to those who I trusted and loved. So I told 2 of my best friends, and my boyfriend at the time, who broke up with me 5 days later. Along with these few close friends, my little sister and brother also knew. I was supposed to be an example for them, and they were supposed to look up to me, but now they were the ones taking care of me. I felt that I'd let them down. The week after my doctor's appointment, I tried to go dress shopping again. This time, my little sister came with us. Looking at my 13-year-old sister that day in the dressing room, I felt nothing but regret. I was terrified that my sister, who looked perfect and beautiful to me, would look in the mirror and would break herself down piece by piece like I had done to myself. It scared me to death that unintentionally I may have installed the same thoughts and mindset into someone I loved more than anything in this world. It wasn't worth it, I said to her, and I meant it completely. I didn't need to say more because she understood. And it wasn't worth it, and it never would be. If I continued to keep starving myself, I would be 6 feet underground, where nobody could tell me how good I looked, or see how skinny I'd become. My eating disorder was taking everything away from me, and I was getting nothing in return. I was finally starting to realize that my eating disorder would never be satisfied. No matter how far the numbers on the scale dropped, or how many concerning comments I got about my weight, my eating disorder was never going to be happy. I didn't just need to, but I finally wanted to get better. There were days I felt great about getting better, and other days I tried to fall back on my old habits. And that's okay. What kept me going was how much happier I was becoming, and other people started to notice. Now that I was finally fueling my body with food, I was becoming a person I liked. My no's for plans turned into yeses, and I looked forward to spontaneous ice cream trips with my friends. The color on my face came back, and I began to look alive again. I learned to block out the voice in my head that seemed to always want me to be unhealthy. I finally had control now, after a year of my life of thinking I did, and I wasn't going to let my disorder take over any more of my life. Throughout my high school experience, I have noticed the comments people carelessly make about others' appearance. We truly don't know what other people are going through. We go to school with 800 other people, and I am just one story out of the hundreds. We don't know what other people struggle with every day, and we need to be more careful with the words we use towards each other. We as human beings need food in order to survive. I was depriving myself of something that I needed to live and survive. Because of my insecurity, I truly believed that I did not deserve to eat. Some of you may never understand what I'm talking about, and that is okay. But some of you may feel the same way, and to those of you who do, it is not worth it. Truly living will always be better than not even recognizing yourself anymore. Last year, I hit this part of me, but today I tell everyone that it's possible to get better, and I am living proof of that. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of this obstacle that I overcame. To anyone out there with whom my story resonates, please know that you are not alone. There is so much joy in this life and so little time to live it. Today I tell everyone you can't live a full life on an empty stomach.
Is Jason Padua.
My journey to Smithfield was an unexpected detour. My friends and I had initially planned to attend Pawnee Gates in the fall of 2020. However, a phone call from Coach Joe Bennett would redirect my path. Leaving my childhood friends at Johnston was hard, but making friends, or enemies for that matter, has never been an issue for me. Entering high school with a class of 24 was a unique experience. This would have been difficult in any year, but especially in 2020. I often found myself eating lunch alone, sometimes in the library, sometimes at Japanese Garden, or even in Mr. Kelly's office. Pandemic restrictions made it hard to form any real connection. The culture here was much different than what it was back in Johnston. It was more reserved, quiet, and just difficult to read. All I knew was that I really missed having friends at school, and I knew I needed to make some here quickly, or it was going to be a rough 4 years. As soon as the restrictions were lifted, I not only found myself making friends, but I was also uniting others who might not have naturally connected. I've always enjoyed doing this. My friends become your friends, and soon we're all friends. We may be different, but we're different together. I even ran for class president during my sophomore year based on this idea. And I still have about 70 pins with my face on them to prove it. But I got crushed by Henry, deservingly so. I've never been one to shy away from attention. In fact, I often seek it. Could be why I'm standing up here right now. But one of the perks of having an extroverted personality is that it can be a shield for others while they find their own way. In return, I gain a larger circle. It's a win-win, right? But this isn't a movie, and things rarely work out that simple. In the sport of distance running, reattaching yourself to a pack after being separated is one of the hardest things to do. The more you try, the wider the gap seems to become. Before long, you find yourself isolated and alone with your thoughts. I found that this metaphor applies to high school as well. Keeping pace with the pack is crucial. You fall in line or you fall behind. The closer I got to my new friends, the further I drifted from my old ones. The more I adapted to the pack, the less like myself I felt. I lost sight of who I was, trying to fit into a character I thought others would like better. I neglected my priorities, distanced myself from my family, lost touch with childhood friends, and abandoned my dreams of competing for an NCAA Division I program. I ignored the warning signs in my sports performance as it sharply declined. I ignored the warning signs in the classroom as my grades plummeted. And of course, I ignored the warning signs from my parents, who I just thought were overreacting. I was so consumed with becoming this character everyone loved that I began to hate everything good about myself. Like most things in my life, this led me back to Roan. Only this time, I was running away from home. I couldn't handle my family's pressure and criticism. I was told every day that I was on a destructive path and that I was hurting my future and letting go of all the things I had going for me. I was done with hearing it. In my mind at the time, my life had gotten better. I was free from pressure and high expectations, surrounded by my new friends. So I went, house to house, couch surfing in dramatic fashion, sure that I had it all figured out. I didn't need my parents in my ear. I was perfectly fine on my own. But that was never the case. What I failed to realize was that I was no longer the fun-loving, easygoing person who made all these new friends to begin with. And in the process, I lost the respect of everyone around me. Unknowingly, I had transformed myself into some annoying, drama-filled jerk. And that's definitely not who I am. Defeated and shunned by all but a few people, I returned home. I needed to reset. This was a dark period of my life. I felt more alone than ever. But lessons worth learning are rarely done easily. So my time here at Smithfield ends just the same as it began. Eating by myself in the library, or out by the Japanese garden. Only this time around, I'm okay with it. I'm happy and content with myself. I've reconnected with old friends. I'll graduate from high school with a pretty respectable GPA, and I've reignited my dream and committed to run at URI in the fall. And I'm still the same guy who would attempt a terrible backflip on the dance floor. I'd like to share the lesson I learned with all of you, especially those who may feel like you're on the outside looking in. If the price of fitting in or being cool is your character and everything that makes you unique, then you better believe it's not worth it. Nothing in this life is worth losing who you really are for. Write your own story, sing your own song, blaze your own trail. Choose to be authentic in a world full of copies. Because after all, what good is fitting in when you were born to stand out? Thank you.
Riley Trainer. I know life's greatest secret, the secret to happiness. I know what you're thinking, money. Yes, money can buy you a trip to Bora Bora or a house in the Cape, but you can't put a price on true satisfaction. I truly believe happiness goes hand in hand with gratitude. We, the human race, have mastered the art of wanting. We've collectively developed the belief that what we have is never enough. You want to dream big? Go for it. But when you achieve that dream, just remember to look back and recognize the important steps and struggles you overcame to get there. For example, when I was in middle school, I had chronic knee pain and had to begin physical therapy. Was this the end of the world? No. But at 13, did I think it was? Of course. It was social suicide. My mile time was 15 minutes, and I only completed 3 laps. I had to eat alone in the nurse's office because my brace was too big to fit under the lunch table. I digress. By the time I was a sophomore in high school, I had to get patella reconstructive surgery on both knees. I was riding the elevator to nearly every class for 8 months. Have you been in that elevator? No matter how obnoxiously dramatic I was about this at the time, I can confidently say now, surgery was the best thing to ever happen to me. I no longer thought to myself, I want his life, or I want her clothes. My thoughts drastically changed to, I can't wait to swim in the ocean again, and I miss being able to ride a bike. Surgery put everything into perspective, and I no longer wanted to take anything for granted. If I had never had that opportunity of reflection, I wouldn't have seen how much there is to be happy about in my life. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I hope my words can be that opportunity for you, minus the crutches and the limp.
My intentions are not to belittle or diminish anyone's struggles, because it's not about who struggles more or who has bigger problems. It's about how we all have the strength within us to overcome any challenge we face. I hope you all can see that if you approach your life with more gratitude, your problems will start to seem smaller and more manageable. Viktor Frankl is a neurologist and psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. Viktor lost his parents, brother, and wife in concentration camps, and then devoted the rest of his life to the meaning of life and its links to happiness. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor talks about the horrors of what he endured and what he learned from it, writing, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. You can't control your life, only your outlook on it. It's not happy people who are grateful. It's grateful people who are happy. I know life's greatest secret, the secret to happiness. I know what you're thinking. It's gratitude."
Mr. Michael Dexon.
What do you want to be when you grow up? I'm sure at some point in your life you've been asked this question. What do you want to be when you grow up? For some people, it's easy. Others, not so much. Today, I'm going to tell you what it was like following my dream and the journey and stories that decided to hitch a ride with me. To be honest, I always knew I wanted to be a firefighter, but I was stuck. I knew what I wanted to do, but it always just felt out of reach. It made me angry at myself for never being able to figure it out and never being able to take the leap of faith and join the fire service. I was stuck working a job I hated and was taking me nowhere, when one day an opportunity came up, a chance to do what I'd always wanted. So I did it, pulled the trigger and joined the fire service. It was a big moment for me. I thought I was finally going to prove to everyone that I could be a firefighter, prove them all wrong. The skinny kid everyone always mocked for wanting to do a job he simply wasn't made for actually could make his dream come true. But that didn't happen. I proved nothing. Sure, I'd done what I'd always wanted to do, but it didn't satisfy me. It just made things worse. My anger grew towards everyone, myself included. I hurt people I loved because I couldn't get out of my own damn head. That anger turned to sadness, constantly asking myself why I could never just be happy with my own accomplishments. I began to isolate myself from everyone I cared about, friends and family alike. To them, I always looked fine, but on the inside, I was always asking why I couldn't stop hating myself. One day, it all just came apart. The carefully crafted persona I put together to stop people from seeing who I really was. That was the tipping point for me. I thought I'd failed everyone around me. Failed as a son, brother, grandson, friend, and as a man. Hell, I was no man. At least, I didn't think I was. And that broke me. I thought I'd hit rock bottom, but it turns out rock bottom had a basement. Going faster than I probably should have on a mountain road, I caught a patch of ice. My truck spun sideways, nearly clipping a tree and almost rolling onto its roof. At that moment, pieces of my life came back to me, faces of my friends and family. I managed to get the truck back under control, luckily breaking nothing. I pulled over and stopped on the side of the road, breaking down in tears. I knew in that moment I had to make a change. Before I could save everyone, I needed to save myself. So I slowly began to fix myself. I started hanging out with my friends more, reconciled with old friends who I hadn't talked to in a long while, made up with people I had harmed in the past, kicked people who really weren't good for me out of my life, found sanctity in my Lord Jesus Christ, thanking him every day for keeping me alive. Pushed myself even harder in training to be the best firefighter I could be. Found the best group of guys and girls that I can proudly call my brothers and sisters. I went back and found that kid that just wanted to make everyone proud and made him feel okay with himself. It felt so freeing to live my life the way I wanted to, without a care for what other people thought. I was finally free. If you could take anything from what I told you about my story today, it's that I want you to keep going. Even when you feel like giving up and quitting on your dreams, that you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you keep going. No matter how dark it is, you should always look for the light. The windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror. What do you want to be when you grow up? My dream is to be free, to be kind, to be caring. When I grow up, I want to be me.
It takes a spark of inspiration and a little ounce of belief to sign up for a competition like this. It then takes an immense amount of dedication to write a speech, edit it over and again, practice it for weeks on end just to get it right. Of course, you then have to deliver that speech in front of a giant audience of your peers. So standing up here takes an incredible amount of courage. With that in mind, I'd like to please ask you to give another round of applause to all of our Now, Mrs. Margarita Dempsey has been at the helm of this Benoit Salisbury Senior Oratorical Competition for more than 2 decades. In that time, she has helped countless students and dedicated endless hours to ensure that this special event happens every year. The event simply would not be the same without her. Mrs. Dempsey, for your energy, enthusiasm, passion, and enormous dedication, I'd like to present you with flowers and ask all of the audience to extend our sincerest thank you and gratitude.
Thank you so much. For those of you who know me well, I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to be in the light with the microphone. My first year here, I was part-time. And Mr. Salisbury, for whom the contest is named, asked me to judge. So from my very initial time at Smithfield, this has been a part of my life. It was very difficult to judge. It's much easier being up here, actually. I have enjoyed it very much. There have been many people who have marshaled this program over the years. Mr. Zabelli, Ms. McClure, and many others. It's not been just myself, and certainly with Mr. Thibodeau and then Mr. Hillary. So you will be in good hands in the future. I think this is a very special program. I'm so proud of all of the students who participated. My own daughters participated. It's a very special thing, and it takes a lot of courage to bare your soul and speak in front of your friends, and I'm just proud that I could be part of their journey and the journey of those who participated before. So thank you very much, good luck, and I expect to see you guys in the future up on the stage. Thank you.
Now the moment you've been waiting for, the announcement of this year's winners. I know that this was an incredibly difficult decision for our judges, which is a testament to the exceptional talent and hard work of all of our participants. But before we proceed, again, let's give one last round of applause to every student. If anyone that knows Ms. Dempsey, you know that she is very into tradition. One of the first meetings I had with her was telling me about the Senior Oratorical, and that the principal comes up and he announces the winners. But given that this is her last year and the recognition of unparalleled contribution, I am going to break tradition. We would like her to come up and have the honor of announcing the winners.
Okay, third place, Abby Gillette. Second place, I feel like I'm at the Oscars. Courtney Arasan.